Are you familiar with FBI Special Agents Kyle Seraphin?
I'm familiar with the name.
Is that yes?
I'm familiar with the name. Familiar with the name. Familiar with the name.
Let's bring in Kyle Seraphin. He's the FBI whistleblower who helped expose government censorship of our First Amendment rights.
Now, we only have this memo because a recently suspended FBI agent called Kyle Seraphin brought it to the public. And we're grateful that he did. Kyle, thank you so much for joining us tonight.
He's the host of something that strangely is called the Kyle Seraphin Show.
Kyle Seraphin, I can't thank you enough for speaking out. I knew you guys were out there, and I knew it was just a matter of time, but you got a lot of guts putting your face and your name to this. You're doing a service on behalf of the American people, and from the bottom of my cracked and broken heart sometimes, thank you very much.
Take a look behind the curtain with a real whistleblower and American patriot. Prepare to embrace the uncomfortable truth because this program has no time for comforting lies. Here is civil liberties enthusiast, Second Amendment defender, and recovering FBI agent Kyle Seraphin.
Hello, my friends. Welcome to the Kyle Seraphin Show. Today is Friday. It is November the 8th. And that means that it's my father's birthday. So happy birthday, Charlie. Happy birthday to a wonderful person who's hanging out with at least one of my brothers right now. Pretty cool to hear. Just saying. 75 years. Awesome stuff. I know that when I was a kid, my dad used to tell me that his life aspiration was to be a father and to grow up long enough to see his kids grow up. And he did that. He had a kind of a rough childhood growing up without a father. So anyway, happy birthday, Dad. I love you. And 75 years. Awesome. It's an awesome milestone. Look forward to seeing you very soon. Folks, we're going to have an interesting show today. We're going to have Steve Friend, the real Steve Friend. Sometimes there's a fake Steve Friend. You may see him on some television programs. He doesn't get to be the real Steve Friend. We lure him out here into the open every single Friday, and I think you guys will appreciate that. We're going to get deep in the weeds on some weird things. It's a strange week because despite the fact that I think there's a lot of celebrations, there's obviously a lot of meltdowns going on the left. I've got some of those for you because we need to bathe in the tears just a little bit. I do think we're in the eye of the storm, and some weird stuff is coming our way, and some of it's going to be coming from inside the tent. I remember something that Dan Bongino said, probably about me, that there were snakes in the tent and people needed to watch out. He also said that about my former supervisor when he was being an a-hole to me. So he does use that quite a bit. But interestingly enough, there are snakes. There are people that don't have the same interest that you and I do. And I just think people need to be aware that you voted for one thing. You're going to get something that's not quite all of that. I hope that the biggest things are there. Most particularly I care about is pardons for the most important J6ers. And if that means a blanket pardon for everybody and they let out some of the scumbags, I'm actually okay with that. When the government screws up the process, that is their job. Let's get a sponsor read here for the folks that let the program go on. Look, I've actually got one of their kits sitting right here in front of me. Folks, if you guys... If you're not paying attention to like your need for self-reliance, it's time. Natural disasters are the new reality. We've got fires in Maui. Geez, you remember all the stuff that happened under Biden? Record level hurricanes recently. We're seeing catastrophic disasters take out entire towns in 24 hours with minimal warning. Basic resources, they're lacking. You don't have the ability to get it. I get it. So we're all wired to think that it's not going to happen to us. But then in a blink of an eye, you've been in survival mode. Some of us have done that in the last couple of years. We know this. Being prepared in advance is your best bet and your best defense against the unexpected. Clearly, we're not going to be relying on the government, even if Trump's there. Don't rely on the government. They're not your friend, no matter who's in charge. The Wellness Company, emergency kits. They completely remove the gatekeeper. They help you make the panic subside when you're dealing with having your own personalized mini pharmacy in the convenience of your own home. You can deal with bacterial infections, staph, bite wounds, UTIs, that's a urinary tract infection, strep throat, respiratory illnesses. You no longer have to be at the mercy of someone else to help you. If you keep a fire extinguisher handy in your house, then it's probably a good idea to have some basic medicines in place in the event that you might need them. It's the same mindset with a different product. Get yourself an emergency kit. It's fully digital. You can do it from the convenience of your couch. You can do it at your kitchen table. All you do is you fill out their intake form. A pharmacist will review it, approve it, and then you'll get the kits in up to 2 weeks. A medical board is going to approve this guideline, which we have the guidebook sitting over here somewhere. There it is. Got a guidebook hanging out. Guys, it's crafted by people like Dr. Peter McCullough. It tells you exactly what you need to do. This is simple preparedness. It is simplified for you. You can invest in your family and self-manage on your own insurance plan. Go to TWC. That's like the wellness company, but it's twc.health/Kyle. TWC Susie.health/Kyle. Save up to $40 off. You'll get free shipping at checkout. Use our promo code. There will be a link in the show description as usual. And you know the thing that I like about this company, which is not actually part of their script here, but I do want you guys to know the thing that they do is they do replacements if you actually use their product, which is to say for up to 2 years. Check out the fine print on this. But if you use it, you can actually have them, you can let them know that you used it, and they will replace the meds that you do. So it's actually an investment in not just the short term. Big fan of that. We're going to put a link in the show description again. And of course, you'll also find it pinned in our comments as soon as they become available after the show. Let's bring on my buddy Steve Friend. Where's my man at? What are you doing, bud?
I'm doing all right, man. I kind of feel like after this week of the paralysis that we had, at least in my house on Tuesday, where my wife was trying to plan out our weekend and I could not tell her what I could do beyond Tuesday night. I feel like a little of the weight's removed. It's almost like you have the body armor on and the heavy backpack and you're able to drop the backpack. You still have a little bit on you, but there is a sense of relief. I'm anxiously waiting today where I can drop total kit. Maybe, just maybe that would happen. But we seem to not be able to have nice things per some personnel decisions that were already made.
Right? Yeah, you want to talk a little bit about your thoughts? We've only seen one decision so far, folks. Oh, here. Let me temper this with as usual. We'll kind of like we'll play on both sides of this a bit. They named Susie WS as the chief of staff. She's the first female chief of staff, which I could not care less about.
DEI.
I'm assuming you don't either. But here she is. I'm gonna throw her up on the screen here. This is the reason why we say you can't always have nice things. Why we do a little bit of pause. So Susie WS, she's a seasoned communication, political, government relations professional. She's spent a lot of time at a lobbying firm. That lobbying firm is called Ballard Partners, and it is Florida's largest governmental affairs firm, which is to say she was a lobbyist at least since 2011. She was involved in the Trump campaign and the Save America PAC and some other stuff like that. He had her on the stage the other day. He was very complimentary. She did like to stay in the background, which makes sense. Lobbyists don't want their faces out there. But what are some of the concerns we have here, Steve?
Well, just the connections to other people like Betty Crocker Esquire-esque people who do not have the, let's say, the MAGA interests at mind or the MAHA interests at mind. Are we making America healthy again or not? It seemed to be contrary to that. With that
it does. So let me flesh that out just a little bit further. So I'm going to show this on the screen again. This is straight from her own LinkedIn, folks. I'm not just doing any kind of like ugly digging here. This is publicly available information. She was the managing partner of Ballard at least until 2022, but it says she currently wears that. So I don't know if she's just not updated her LinkedIn. It's possible. LinkedIn's not that important to me. The other interesting thing, though, is that Ballard Partners announced in 2016, quite a while ago, actually, as Donald Trump was just in the process of taking into the White House, right? So this is after the election, but before he was inaugurated. Ballard Partners announced a strategic alliance with the Chicago-based All Circa political consulting firm, the biggest Democrat lobbying firm in the state of Illinois, and certainly the highest paid in the city of Chicago, which is in fact owned by the president and owner, John J. Kelly Jr., none other than the husband of Julie Kelly. I guess that makes this administration already bipartisan in some ways, like that they have that sort of reach across the aisle capability? What do you think?
It's a way to look at it optimistically. And look, if you're in politics, I think there's probably going to be cross-pollination that goes on there. And anybody who's trying to like draw the org chart connections and make the perfect pieces of the puzzle fit together, you can kind of make yourself nuts. I'm tending to give a little bit of latitude because I think that Susie WS did really well on the campaign, and maybe that's why Donald Trump is looking at that as all the bona fides that she needed in order to fill that role. At least she's not Reince Priebus coming in as the first chief of staff or John Kelly after that.
And I guess that's the thing. We brought it up on the call-in show last night when we were talking to some of our subscribers, but I think there's something to be said for Donald Trump fires a lot of people. And he doesn't let him sit around very long. So, well, I guess we'll see what that looks like.
Do you remember when he hired Priebus? It was almost like, hey, I'm trying to get the Big Ten.
I don't even remember he was in.
This is me reaching out to the establishment GOP. This is going to be a big, giant Big Ten. At least with this hiring decision, it's almost as if he's saying, like, loyalty to me, and she ran my campaign, so I'm going to put my faith in that component.
Yeah, I don't hate that. I just don't much care to have lobbyists in there. Again, it's that org chart of crossing a bunch of streams. I guess more interesting news is that the things is we want action, and I don't really care who does it. The actions I want is I want some justice for some of those that are J6ers, particularly the ones that we love. But honestly, if it even helps like Snake Lang and some of the others out there that are still scum, like if you're a scumbag, you're going to end up back in trouble again. That's kind of my estimate. And the government has clearly demonstrated malfeasance in this. You want to, this goes back to your whistleblower activities actually, and sort of your call outs of how they failed to do the job. I saw somebody in the FBI the other day, a retired FBI agent, of course, but was saying that your whistleblower activity was just a disagreement with policy. And yet that's what being a whistleblower is. You say that some policy, like a violation of policy is in fact a whistleblower disclosure. You want to talk about your disclosure just a little bit?
So my disclosures happened in August of 2022, and it was basically twofold. Number one was the departure from the procedures of the policies that are listed out in the domestic investigations operations guides with the January 6th cases, because the way that those cases were being run is a departure from the way you typically run the cases. They, instead of opening up one case in Washington, D.C., they opened a separate case for every single person, and that juked the stats. But all that to say, all the politics surrounding that one element of my whistleblowing, my concern was you've departed from the policy and you haven't documented or given a reason as to why. You have to turn that over if you're going to bring a prosecution forward. That's the process that we follow. I have to document if I use the wrong color evidence tape. I have to justify that. You're not doing that, and they were not following the process. They're not interested in the process. They're interested in the outcomes. The second one was, again, a disagreement on use of FBI resources, and that was we had a subject, January 6th. He had been interviewed 18 months earlier. He said what he did that day. He had no criminal history. He said, I'll cooperate with you, whatever you want to do. And we waited. And because of the first element, where we weren't in charge of our own cases, because Washington was still running our cases, we waited for a year and a half. And then they said, go forth and arrest him. And my executive management in the Jacksonville field office decided that the SWAT team was the appropriate way to bring him into custody. And I said, that is an unnecessary risk to him and to us. He has no expectation that you're going to arrive in force, and he's already pledged to be cooperative. There's many other ways we can bring him into custody, rightfully so, with the legally and lawfully signed arrest warrant. Right. Why are you using the hammer? And they said that I was a spectator. I wasn't in the game like they were. I was just on the sidelines making comments. But I'd arrested more people than just about everyone combined in the Jacksonville field office.
That's the big thing. You had more experience putting people behind bars, probably between local law enforcement, but definitely even in your FBI time, because arrests are not an everyday occurrence unless you end up working on an Indian reservation, which is this many people. Let me also add that when you choose the tool and you choose your tactics, you also oftentimes choose the outcome in the way that somebody is going to react to it, which is the thing that we generally see. You and I agree on this 100%. I know Garrett does as well. Despite the fact that you're on FBI SWAT is the most likely way for someone to get shot. It's actually statistically documented that it's the most likely place for an agent to be involved in a shooting, either as the receiver or as the offensive shooter. That's bar none. And by the way, the second version is on surveillance on SOG where I was working.
And you want to talk about the nonsensical nature at which the FBI even approaches deploying SWAT, where we have to send them at 6 o'clock in the morning because that's the thing we always do, right, without any sort of assessment. And that always struck me as being setting us up for a bad failure, right? Because we would drive a long distance to some sort of SWAT operation. We would be sleeping in a hotel where you don't get the best sleep. You would eat out the night before at a restaurant where might not getting the normal nutrients, or you're more likely to have like an upset stomach or something like that.
And then we would get up at
3 or 4 o'clock in the morning, out of routine, out of our normal, and that's the most likely event that you're going to be in, a shooting. And
to be fair,
you're going to set us up for that, and all this it's stacked against you.
Yeah, I guess the upside to it is that there's a lot of experience of like people, if they're trained properly, which of course SWAT only trains for the FBI, they only trained once a week.
4 days a week. 4 days a month. 4 days
a month. What we also saw is that, like, I remember doing this in military training where I actually I went to one of the most unpleasant trainings I've ever done in my life, and then I decided to engage in it while I was ridiculously hungover, which is a choice. But it's not a good choice for most people. And I remember like getting ready to puke in my mouth, and I have this lieutenant in the Coast Guard who's looking over at me, and she was a helicopter pilot, and she's like, "Are you okay?" And I was like, "I think this might be the worst I've ever felt in my entire life." Like, it was the worst hangover that I've ever had. I have no idea why we decided to be out so late, but we were. in Spokane, Washington. And at the end of it all, I did fine. And she was like, why did you do that? I go, hey, train how you fight. The odds of you getting into a helicopter crash, because this was a survival like water egress course where they put you in what's called the dunker. It's a fake helicopter on a crane that falls in the water, rolls over, it swamps you. You have like blacked out goggles on so you can't see anything. You're on a breath hold trying to get yourself out of this like huge piece of metal that's underwater in a big pool. So it's semi-controlled, but it's pretty wild. And I was like, look, the odds are I'm never going to be in a helicopter crash when I got 12 hours of sleep the night before, that I got a massage, a chiropractor came in and adjusted my back, and I'm feeling awesome. And I'm like, this is so great. Oh,
Train like you fight. I come in more often hungover.
Most likely, I will, like if we're doing a helicopter crash, like we're probably in bad shape and probably bad things had just happened anyway. So I actually thought that was a pretty good little move. But yeah, if you can control the environment, that's foolish. It's ridiculous. Like you'd never do this. So the interesting kind of thing is that there's been some talk on the political left. A lot of us are really cagey right now because it feels like it went too easily. Do you have that sense as well?
Yes. Look, my one sense of relief that I felt, and I was almost thinking back 2 years ago, I made the comment. I told Glenn Beck, I said, I was waiting to have the Captain America Endgame moment where you hear on your left. And
right.
Basically, you and Garrett and a couple others, where that's it, right?
Yeah,
Nobody
there wasn't
else.
a lot of us.
And then I felt like Tuesday night, it wasn't the FBI agents. It was all 70+ million Americans said, on your left.
I very much agree with that. I don't know that projects its way up to the top, as we're saying, like we're gonna keep an eye on this thing, but it is very interesting. I also didn't see the materialization of the OP4. I didn't see the opponents pop up in the way that we would expect them. They haven't gotten wild yet, and we've heard a lot of calls. I'm not even going to play them because I just don't care, but we covered it a little bit yesterday. Kamala Harris, Joe Biden, Barack Obama, everyone's talking about a peaceful transition to power, and they keep saying it in a way that makes me think that they don't want to do that. So that's really interesting. We've got like a lot of ground between now and January the 20th, and an awful lot of things could happen. In 100 days, insanity could ensue. So I just want to be cautious. And I find it very telling that you've got reporters now asking this question. We're going to listen to this one real quick. I'll get your response in a second. They're asking Donald Trump about his people and saying, hey, can you talk to your folks? But why would that be necessary?
I don't have to tell them that. I don't have to tell them that there'll be no violence. Of course there'll be no violence. My supporters are not violent people. I don't have to tell them that. And I certainly don't want any violence, but I certainly don't have to tell. These are great people. These are people that believe in no violence. Unlike your question, you believe in violence. Go ahead.
What do you think?
This is the exact same thing with the Proud Boys all over again. Well, I know in the past you've disavowed violence, but do you now at this moment? Yes, I disavow. Well, how about now at this moment? It's going to be the exact same thing over and over again. Can we just get the message across that he should not even address these people? They do not deserve it. The media is dead. It's over. You will never get their approval. Just move on.
What are you talking about? Get out of here. Like, you should just dismiss them like they're fools, like they're dumb children that are not your children. That's the best. So like you have to be cautious and you have to be respectful when you speak to your own children, because you can actually do some real damage, but not other people's children that come up and say dumb things. You deal with kids like out in the world, like you're at a playground and some kid runs up to you and it's like, my dad is a firefighter and he can fly. And you're like, congratulations. And then he comes up and he's like, your child is stupid. And you're like, you just push him over.
Oh, I had one at the Pop Warner game last week. I was just like, hey, we're not friends. You should go back to your mom right now.
Yeah. Don't talk to me like we're friends. And I think Donald Trump needs to be doing that too. It's like, who told you could talk? Go back to where you came from. This is not going to be it. And the reason why is because they're still nuts. Actually, let me throw this on the screen. This is from CNN right now. Trump grasps unprecedented power. Like we're doing more of this nonsense. The immunity ruling looms large. That was their opening story. They actually changed it. The opening story now that they had to update halfway. It must have either got bad reviews or it didn't get the clicks they wanted. Maybe people were like, dude, get out of here.
Unprecedented power that currently Joe Biden has.
Unprecedented power that he's sitting on and nobody knows what to, because it's like there's still a lot of people you got to talk into it. It says that Trump promises to remake the government, which would change society. We're sort of down with that. I've actually got some evidence of how well that could go for us if the left responds even like lunatics. But let me play you some View clips because those are super fun. Those are some of the weirdest, stupidest ladies, people that shouldn't get the time of day. And they're wondering why women would vote a certain way, and the best is just listen to it. I can't tell if it's Whoopi or Joy or one of the other kind of like cackling hens yells misogyny. It's the first answer that they came up with. Why women would vote for Donald Trump is misogyny. Stand by.
And finally, we talk a lot about these different demographics and these assumptions of where they're going to go. Latinos in Texas, a district that's 97% Latino, went 75 percentage points for Donald Trump. Why?
Misogyny.
It's on the border.
It's
the border
misogyny.
crisis is on their doorstep. And they were begging people to care about it for years. We need to take some lessons.
That's what that was.
The lessons are not
Knock,
misogyny,
knock.
sexism.
Who's there? Oh my gosh, it's Whoopi.
Whoopi had like a seizure or something, and then she just realized she was sitting on TV. But misogyny and sexism were the two first offerings of that one.
Please continue this. Please.
Yeah,
I really, really would appreciate that. Look, I hate the demographic element of analysis that goes on into the elections, but it's just part of it. So I accept that for what it is. This is what I will take away. The Latino vote that went 45% nationwide for Donald Trump, better than anybody, even better than George Bush in 2004.
Yep.
That's the new arrivals to the big tent of the Republican Party.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason they came over was not misogyny. It was because of the borders. Because, people who vote for president are citizens of the country, regardless of whether or not the people streaming over the border look like them. They care about the 50 million who have invaded the country. And if you do not follow through, if you punk out on the mass deportations, they're the first ones that are going to ban you. Because unlike Kyle and me, who have come to the realization of we're officer and a gentleman and we have nowhere else to go a lot of times when it comes to elections, and we have to vote for the Republicans for the most part, they're the newbies. They still have the rose-colored glasses, and they'll say, nope, we're done. So you need to deliver on that, and it can't just be, oh, well, we're going to nibble around the edges. And once that first story comes out from CNN about Abuela, who's getting taken care of by her 18-year-old who has to work 3 jobs to do it, and do you really want to break up this family? Yes, we do. If we're going to give you the option, you can leave in comfort and fly Abuela home, or we're going to take her to the southern border and tell her to walk, and we're not giving her a bottle of water. That's the options, and I don't care what the media says, because Donald Trump should say, get out of here, you stupid little kid. I'm not even going to talk to you.
That's right. George Hill actually had a great idea the other day when we were talking offline, and his option was, and I want to encourage it, and anybody that has the ability to get these into the ears of the people that might listen, there should be an announcement in the next 2 days, maybe Monday morning. We have a comprehensive plan for the mass deportation, and we are offering an amnesty program. Donald Trump, press release, amnesty program offered to illegal aliens in the United States. If you leave before the morning of January 20th, when he is sworn into office, you can leave your information with the immigration officials, and you will not have any derogatory things assigned to your name. However, if we find you after the moment of inauguration on January 20th, and you are here illegally, not only will you be removed from the country unceremoniously, we will also PNG you. And you will no longer be allowed to come back in under any auspices. That's what would be amazing. Let them self-deport. It's the same thing as giving your kids the option. We can do it the easy way or the hard way. When I come back here in 5 minutes, you better be cleaning up your room. Or when I come back in, I'm going to disassemble your bed and you will now be sleeping on the floor because apparently you don't like to have nice things. It's just like, you get a choice in this, and the choice is, do you want to get in line like all of the Latinos that came here legally and all the people that were born here? Or would you like to enjoy the fruits of your labors, which is crime, and that's going to pay off in the way that it's supposed to pay off? Even California voted to make crime again. It
was over 70% voted for that Proposition 36.
Overwhelmingly, people were like, I don't want shit at CVS locked up.
Can I get some Q-tips without having to ask the woman for the key?
No, you have to go ask the lady behind the plastic. Your 2-minute run into the supermarket or the half-ass store there now just became a 20-minute wait for some person that's overwhelmed and doesn't want to unlock it and has to unlock every item. I'm not done with the fun stuff because that's just the way I have to do it. Let's do what Joy Behar says. She knows better than you. What she knows is all these people voted for Trump because they don't actually believe he's going to do what he said. The exact opposite of what Steve Friend just offered to you, but here they are making these arguments. There's apparently a podcast behind The View. There's not just The View, there's The View after The View. And it's run by what looks like a lesbian, but I think it's actually a male biological.
My only conclusion is if you care about democracy, then why do you believe that? So they don't believe it, I think. That's what I said today.
Right.
Obviously, they don't believe he's going to pull off any of these things he threatens.
And a lot of the people that cited democracy as an issue and then voted for Donald Trump I think, believe that the DOJ has been weaponized against him, and he's being brought up on trumped-up charges.
All right,
they've been bamboozled, though.
Okay, but now that he won,
yes,
the reality and the truth is going to start to roll out.
Yeah,
and then these people will now see what the truth is. We will all see what the truth is. Did he mean it? Is the DOJ going to go after him? We'll see what happens. So pay attention is all I have to say to.
She's got super advanced knowledge of just pay attention. I got one more for you while I'm doing this, and then I'm going to play you some stuff. We're going to have some fun, I promise you. It's Friday, Steve, so hang tight.
I love Joy.
Here's Sunny Hostin. She's very, very upset. She's the one, I think, that said sexism in the last clip. So
Profoundly disturbed. I think if you look at the New York Times this morning, the headline was America makes a perilous choice. I think that in 2016, we didn't know what we would get from a Trump administration, but we know now. And we know now that he will have almost unfettered power.
Unfettered power
that Joe Biden currently has. And look, the people were really concerned about democracy. They
by what has
voted
been,
for Donald Trump by the popular vote. This is the ultimate to me, too. I didn't really touch on this, but I mentioned like the little kid coming up to me at the Pop Warner game. I told my kid before he played in that game, the team that they were playing against had a reputation for being very mouthy and chippy. And I said, if you guys are leading and they start doing that, don't react. Don't get a penalty. You have the ultimate. You just say scoreboard. It's undefeatable. You can't say that he hacked the election. He really didn't win the popular vote. We need to be a democracy. Well, if you wanted a democracy, I guess now Joy Bayar is going to say that we don't need a democracy. We need to have elitists, an egalitarian system where people like The View and their watchers are the ones who are only going to be the ones to select who the president is, because those poor plebes, the masses, they didn't really believe what Donald Trump said he was going to be. They should have instead believed what Kamala Harris did, which was essentially take every single policy that Donald Trump put out there and add to the fact that he was literally Hitler and then I'll legalize weed for black people. But outside of that, it was Donald Trump's policy.
Yeah, add this to this. I'm not going to play any clips from Joe Biden's speech, which was like 7 minutes long, and it was as doddering as anything. People are like, "Oh, he looks great. He looks way better than he ever did." Like, no, you're just feeling good. You're just feeling good. He still was terrible. He went out there and he was like, "I just want to say hello to my granddaughter. How are you doing, granddaughter? You're so sweet." Yeah, I mean, he wasn't great. He walked out with sunglasses on for no particular reason. He had them when he came out of the house, out of the White House. He was wearing the aviators because he thinks
they
it
don't
looks
see
cool.
the pupils dilated from all the amphetamines.
He immediately took them off when he got up, before he got to the microphone. So, like, you might take him off when you go to speak, but he's just foolish and weird. But yeah, he does have a little bit of a pep in his step, and he did kind of have like kind of a F you to Kamala, which I thought was great. He referred to her as car ramrod. I think he said she has a spine made of a ramrod or something to that effect. That was funny. Yeah, he had a little bit of that. But I think he's also unburdened by what happened. Also, Kamala got 0 votes in the primary. Joe Biden won the primary. Like, that's what happened, whether it was rigged or otherwise. Donald Trump won a primary. They didn't get to face off. I'm sick of the democracy take. For whatever it's worth, we'll do this one clip, and I'm gonna bring over my buddies at Patriot Cooler. So get yours ready if you got it. But CNN is arguing very strongly right now to be the only rational voice that speaks to leftists, and I'm here for it. It's quite fun. They actually lied out, like they brought someone on. They keep doing it from the left and the right. This woman is like a Democrat strategist. And she's talking about, these are the policy fails, you guys. We lost, and we can't be ridiculous. And can people please stop listening to The View? She essentially says this. She's also pretty, which is nice. There's 2 pretty people. The pretty lady on The View was making sense, and the pretty lady on CNN now making sense. Too much sense. I don't know how long it'll last over there. Ready?
Said it.
Here we go.
To voters, we are not the party of common sense, which is what the message that voters sent to us. For a number of reasons. We don't know how to speak to voters. When we address Latino, and language has meaning. When we address Latino voters as Latinx, for instance, because that's the politically correct thing to do. It makes them think that we don't even live on the same planet as they do. When we are too afraid to say that, hey, college kids, if you're trashing a campus at Columbia University because you're unhappy about some sort of policy and you're taking over a university, and you're trashing it and preventing other students from learning, that is unacceptable. But we're so worried about alienating one or another cohort in our coalition that we don't know what to say when normal people look at that and say, wait a second, I send my kids to college so they can learn, not so that they can burn buildings and trash lawns, right? And so on and so forth. When we put pronouns after names and say she, her, as opposed to saying, you know what, if I call you by the wrong pronoun, call me out, I'm sorry, I won't do it again. But stop with the virtue signaling and just speak to people like they're normal. There's nothing I'm going to say to Shermichael that I'm not going to say to you, that I'm not going to say to somebody else. I speak the same language to everybody. But that's not what Democrats do. We constantly try to parse out different ways of speaking to different cohorts because our focus groups or our polling shows that so-and-so appeals to such and such. That's not how normal people think. It's not common sense. And we need to start being the party of common sense again. Joe Biden is not responsible for that. Neither is Kamala Harris. It is a problem that Democrats have had for years. I've been banging the drum on this for, I don't know how, probably 10 years, if not longer on this. We need to get back to being the party of common sense, that people look at us and say, we understand you. We appreciate what you say because you speak our language.
Make CNN news again, huh? 48 hours and we're into this.
Julie Rodzinski, welcome to the Republican Party.
Yeah, sorry, you just lost your Democrat strategist spot, but there's an opening for common sense, attractive, and well-spoken people.
The anchor's eyebrows,
she's
her,
rebooting.
She had the corporate eyebrow, like the one just kept going up higher and higher until it got to like Nancy Pelosi level. She was so perplexed. Wait, you're supposed to be saying things that Joy Behar says. You're the Democrat. We're not going to be fair and balanced now. We need to have extreme.
We're here for conflict. We're here for conflict. It doesn't work. Don't worry. There's still going to be people that make no sense. Like I said, CNN is vying for it. The ABC late night shows not vying for it. So here they are poking fun at a guy who's not only the wealthiest man in the world, but also seems to have the ear of the president-elect. I'm sure this will go really well for Jimmy Kimmel, who had a little bit of a meltdown. Nothing like trying to call this guy out and claim that you're not propaganda while doing propaganda. Anyway, I enjoy the self-owns. He was crying yesterday, by the way. He was crying on his show. I
totally
burden you guys with this. Before we go to that, actually, which is a good joke, let's go ahead and go to my buddies over at the Patriot Cooler company. I've got mine on my desk right now. It is loaded up with fluids to rehydrate. This week has been rough, and I've needed to hydrate. I've had this thing full of water the entire time. It's 40 ounces of goodness. You guys can find it on the show description links, or you can go to patriotcoolers.com, promo code KYLE. If you want it with our engravings on it, you're probably going to want to use the link for the Kyle Seraphin Show collection. That's in the show description. If you want to just do it where you want to order it without it, maybe you want to do it in OD green, maybe you want to have it in a red like this, or a blue, or a white. There's all kinds of options. Who knew that I needed a handle until I had it? Check it out. It's under patriotcoolers.com. Use the promo code KYLE. That saves you 10%. You'll get free shipping if you spend $50. That's pretty easy to do because you're going to want to get two, one for you and one for someone you love. Otherwise, they're going to take it from you. This could very easily end up in the hands of a spouse or a loved one. Just be careful. Don't go out there and buy your Patriot Coolers irresponsibly. Make sure that you have enough to go around in your home. And also, it's got American values on it. Stars, bars, Patriot. That was really heavy when I lifted it down. It's a great stuff. I know Steve's got one too. Steve, you got one in there?
Sure do. Got my Patriot OD, and then I also combined it with the Dash Suspendable sticker, the American Radical sticker.
That looks really good on there. I sort of don't like stickers on my stuff, but the gold on the red on the
it
green
makes it pop, especially on OD green. That's why OD green is the best.
Mm-hmm. It really is good. All right, you ready for Jimmy Kimmel? The meltdown continues. Yesterday he was crying. Today he's lashing out in anger.
Last night I shared some of my thoughts and feelings about what happened and how much I'm going to miss democracy and whatnot. And I heard from a lot of people about it, but none more prominent than the richest man in the world, Elon Musk, who this morning tweeted, Kimmel is an insufferable nonsense propaganda puppet, which at least my children like me, you know, it's... Take issue with that. The guy who paid people $1 million a day to vote for Donald Trump is calling me a propaganda puppet. Listen, Kermit, you bought Twitter. You bought a social media platform that is literally a propaganda machine. Let me tell you something. If I spent 2 weeks trying to come up with a 4-word description of Elon Musk, I don't think I could do better than insufferable nonsense propaganda puppet. This guy, the New York Times is propaganda, the Washington Post is propaganda, the Atlantic is propaganda, NPR is propaganda, AP stands for Associated Propaganda. Good one, Broseph. Everything is propaganda to Elon Musk. But what sucks for me is for the last 6 months, I've been working on a project, and I was hoping to announce it in January when Trump takes office. But since the cat is now out of the bag, well, here it is, my new show. And now
he's not funny at all. Look,
that's tough.
I mean, I can't disagree with anything that Elon Musk said because the legacy media is all propaganda, including Jimmy Kimmel. I'm still waiting on the criminal referral for when Jimmy Kimmel told people to vote if they were a Republican after Election Day, right? Where's the Doug Mackey response for him on that one? And I can't take your crocodile tears very seriously, Jimmy, when you were crying not too long ago for Cecil the Lion, because you're just not a serious person. And when was it that the Democrat Party said that Jimmy Kimmel could be elevated to like the Pope of late night TV when we have him on camera in blackface making fun of Karl Malone, the basketball player? That seems to be something that should be career ending if they're really, really set on their values, isn't it?
I love putting the quarter in Steve Friend and watching him just get like riled up about idiots. Yeah, and you know what? The funny thing is that Adam Carolla was always the 80% of the Man Show when it comes to humor, capabilities, and talent. Whatever. And he chose not to have one of these late night shows because he's not woke and he's not stupid and he probably doesn't like the taste of other people's words in his mouth. Is what
the other 20% were the women that were jumping on the trampoline. Jimmy Kimmel was just there for the boxing match when Adam Carolla kicked his ass.
Turns out that a guy that used to swing a hammer for a living has, is greater than the alternative. I want to show you kind of a funny little victory. We're going through the victory laps here. This one, I don't know what to make of it. Either the government has run out of money, fair possibility, or somebody might be vying for like a presidential pardon and they're trying to act like, hey, not only do you have a right to have a rally at Madison Square Garden, but also we never really like the illegal aliens coming into our city. Here's Mayor Adams making a little interesting change in Pitt.
News, the mayor just announced that the city will no longer issue vouchers to migrants to pay for food, ending a controversial program that had repeatedly come under attack by conservatives and others.
This pilot program in New York City, drenched in both humanity and controversy, distributed debit cards to migrant families staying in city-funded hotels and allowing them to buy their own food. Eyewitness News reporter Josh Einiger following the breaking news for us. Josh?
Well, Bill, it's a program that, as you say, generated plenty of controversy, but now its absence may raise even more questions. The so-called Immediate Response Cards pilot program was designed to help feed migrant families who'd found themselves in New York with no way to afford food. The one-year contract provided what the city described as culturally relevant food to 2,600 migrant families, allowing them to basically buy what they wanted. A family of four with two kids under 5 got about $350 per week to cover food in a program the city said would actually save taxpayers millions a year. It also reduced food waste. You may remember the food the city had been providing in migrant shelters was seen as not culturally sensitive to the needs of some migrant groups, and it ended up just going to waste. For more than a year, the city was groaning under the weight of more than 200,000 asylum seekers. Officials say the migrant population has actually reduced lately. In fact, a massive shelter on Roosevelt Island is in the process of closing.
Unity is not possible with these people. Ever.
Can we add a few things in there? Number one, that show was drenched in humanity. That story was. Additionally, they were looking to provide culturally appropriate food. And what I didn't hear was the clip of Mayor Adams saying, a lot of people saying that this is going to be a problem for me, what I'm doing here. But like what you're going to see is that I'm a smart manager for giving away this much money.
$50 a day to families?
$350 a week is pretty close to like what a middle class, my family in a nice place spend on groceries. We got 4 kids. That's not a bad gig. Like, dude, who's going to pay for your grocery bill at that level? I'm sure your boys are eating you out of house and home at this point. Like,
and every day they're getting bigger. Yeah, $350 would be, we're a family of 4. That would be basically what we spend on food a week at grocery shopping, where you're buying in bulk and you're hoping to get some sort of a discount, right?
I did the numbers. I went back through my from my credit card receipts because we keep everything on the sort of same thing to be able to organize myself. We don't carry a balance, but we're able to like track our spending that way, and it's easier for me. And I guess I could put paper receipts. Maybe if I grow up, I'll do that. But I'm looking at it, and it's like starting in January of 2024, we've been averaging probably close to $1,500 a month in just food, which is to say that the prices are very high, right? But you're telling me that the New York City is offsetting by $1,400? That's a pretty good gig.
And let's be honest, they want culturally appropriate food. It needs
to be culturally appropriate
going to be very expensive. It's just tortillas and cheese.
We don't want it to be insensitive. It's just really crazy to see this kind of stuff. So anyway, I don't know whether Adams is looking for an opportunity to turn the page, or whether he realizes that the people have spoken and maybe it's time to get on that train, or they ran out of money, which seems like probably the most likely thing because it is New York and it's not like they're going to acknowledge their mistakes.
Well, after getting all those government funds, which he could then launder to his donors, like the hotel lobby, to make sure that they could stay there as shelters, and he sees that his prospects going forward are probably not going to be very good to get reelected. He probably has to do what's probably in the interest of, as a good steward of the money that no longer is coming in.
It would be a gamble. I don't know if the poly markets aren't saying that they think it's likely. They think the deportation is like in the 20% likelihood. But if it would be an interesting gamble to put money into like bus companies and planes right now. Let's do another example of sanity. Let's just do back and forth between the sanity and the unsanity. Here is Scott Jennings, another argument that CNN, this is CNN late night TV or evening TV, trying to grab the sanity, but they also brought in a coper and they let him just melt down, which is really fun to watch. I always like it when people who look like they should be men, they have beards like men, and then they behave like sad leftist women on national television. Here we go.
If you look at the arc of the Biden presidency, he was in really good shape until August of 2021. When Afghanistan happened, he went under 40, she went under 40, and they really lived there until the end of the He's still there.
Why? I'll tell you why.
Because he ran and told us that the adults were back in charge, and that was the opposite.
Yeah, they
of
were
that.
because Donald Trump was a child.
And you know what else?
Yeah.
And you know what else? The fact that they wouldn't give these 13 service members' families the time of
bullshit,
day.
Dude.
Time of day.
I'm sorry, but Donald Trump hates veterans. He called them suckers and losers. He did. He absolutely, despite he has his whole life. He has his entire life.
I know you're super emotional. I just.
Of course I am. I'm terrified.
I'm telling you, the political reality is that when they made that decision.
It doesn't matter, but you don't admit
that
Donald Trump hates veterans. You don't admit it. You deny a man, Chief John Kelly, a Marine. You deny.
First of all, he wasn't a chief. He was a general. What do you make of that little smile from Scott Jennings there?
Scott Jennings is the husband who's having the argument with the wife, because you see that guy hopping up and down. He's the wife, the emotional wife, and he made the actual cardinal sin mistake, Scott Jennings did, of saying, look, I know you're emotional right now. That doesn't go well for you in the marital argument, perfect. But it makes for really good TV to say that to that guy. He has all the facts. He's very logical, and he just kind of is dismissive. His approach to that crazed lunatic is what I want to see from everyone attached to a Donald Trump administration when they have the wailing and the gnashing of the teeth, the cackled hens coming at them and screaming about things. You just kind of shake your head and laugh and say, look, I realize that you're really emotional right now, but I just have the information here. If you want it, you can have it. If you don't, we're just moving on.
Dude, it was so good. It's so much fun to watch that stuff. I don't know. It just makes me, it's like really enjoyable. What I'm looking for right now, we call it the technique, right? And I'm
Stay in the box, stay in the pocket.
Okay. So here's the deal. I'm going to move this into my videos here real quick. Let me see if I can just pull it up because it makes me happy when I do these things on the fly. All right, we're going to do this on the fly. You ready? I think I can get this on the fly. It's called the technique. I know I have a Bill Burr clip here for you. And we're just gonna wait it out. Let's see. Maybe I can open it right there. Okay, is that the technique? Which one? This one.
This is what the argument was about. I was so right. What happened? Okay, you're winning, and they just start saying that crazy shit out of nowhere. Just know in that moment you've won the fight. Okay? All right. Don't get mad. Bob and weave. Slip all of that shit. Maybe because you got a little dick. Just let that slide. Stay in the pocket of the argument. Okay? It's over. The argument is over. You've won. Just take a knee and run out the clock.
100%.
That's it. I had to go find that in my archives because I hold on to that. I actually had to chop that thing up to get to exactly the parts I want without any of the extra.
Scott Jennings rolled out the victory formation there. He wouldn't take the bait. Donald Trump hates the troops. They want the conflict. And Scott Jennings, because he's so reasonable and he has the facts.
He said, I know you're emotional. And the guy said, I'm terrified. It's like,
I'm so emotional that I'm hopping up and down in my chair.
I know. We know. Okay, listen, not everybody is feeling good about the victory. Obviously, there's been some leftist meltdowns. Here's a little bit of a different kind of leftist meltdown. See if you guys can read between the lines here. There are a lot of Latinos that are worried about what's going to happen next under Donald Trump.
I dare you, they're Latinx.
This guy might be a Latinx. You tell me after you listen. There seems to be like a different message than what I'm expecting.
Donald Trump won, and I am very, very afraid that he might deport my mother-in-law. She entered illegally to the country, and she lives in Street 4, number 47, apartment D, New York. I am very, very concerned. That's right behind the green apartment. Yeah. I have nothing bad happened to her. The gate is always open. You don't have any dogs either. Street 4, number 47, apartment D. If she got deported, how my life would be. Why? Street 4, number 47, apartment D.
I'm glad that there is a cultural unanimity around husbands not liking their mother-in-law.
Oh, it's universal sometimes. I just think it's funny. I think I don't have that same experience, but the joke is still perfect. God, it'd be really.
It reminds me of. Do you remember
his mother-in-law got deported?
The one that came out when they did the lockdowns. It was like the deep voice where they faced the black guy. He was like, "You've been locked down for coronavirus. You have two options. Option A, be locked down with your family." And he goes, "B," without hearing option B.
Yeah. The best is that they could get a little bit of comedy out there. Again, it does seem like while some people are clearly embracing this and having a good time, which that's just good. I've got another really good one too that I think is actually when you knock yourself out is my favorite. This one makes me just a little bit more paused. It's we've already heard Laticia James come out and say that she's ready to go out there and resist Trump, that we're hearing the states. So this was the thing that George and I talked about yesterday, and I think we did this on Brianna Morella's show. But the wildest thing is watching that under the first Trump administration, what you saw with the states weaponizing like district court judges in the federal judiciary to pause the entire nation's programs. And that one guy who was appointed to one little tiny jurisdiction in the United States was going to basically have like blanket power over the entire country. That's crazy to me. I think Donald Trump should just keep doing it and just be like, okay, well, judges, go ahead and send your enforcement agencies in because we're just going to ignore you and we're going to keep deporting people. Until it gets up to the Supreme Court, I don't think a district judge should be able to overrule the president. And by the way, I believe that across the board. I just think that it's so ugly and stupid. But we saw the states using that tactic, right? And now what we're seeing under Biden is that the federal judiciary is suing the states to have them stop enforcing things like federal law in Texas, which is even crazier. So whatever side they're on, you're seeing them fight. So there is going to be a fight. Here's a little evidence of that. I've got this and some little bit from the ACLU, who apparently hate liberty too.
If the Trump administration requests it, would the Massachusetts State Police assist in mass deportations?
No, absolutely not. But, you know, let me say this. I do think it's important that we all recognize that there's going to be a lot of pressure on states and state officials. And I can assure you, we're going to work really hard to deliver. Some realities also need to be, noted, and that is in 2016, we had a very different situation in the courts. And while I'm sure there may be litigation ahead, there's a lot of other ways that people are going to act and need to act for the sake of their states and their residents. There's regulatory authority and executive powers and the like. There's legislation also within our states. So I think that the key here is that every tool in the toolbox has got to be used to protect our citizens, to protect our residents, and protect our states, and certainly to hold the line on democracy and the rule of law.
One of the reasons why I want to stress to people, we need you in the streets, because the courts will not always do everything for us.
But is there more public acceptance?
So every tool in the toolbox is what's on the table.
To include getting out there in them streets. I guess Kamala Harris will probably be out in them streets.
Girl, you don't know what she's talking about. Her and Joe Biden, they're all for it.
She's out in them streets. I'm going to kind of pivot just a little bit here before we go back to a little bit of humor. Whistleblower experience. We've been kind of hoping that there's going to be some good things. This is a little video that I've been holding on to for a couple of days. This dropped before the election. I think that a lot of folks inside the various agencies are curious. There's some panic going on in the FBI. We'll talk about this. This is, I think, the thing that a lot of folks have been waiting for. There's a great story from Carrie Pickett over at Washington. What is it? Washington
Times.
But this is kind of a sense of why people are actually maybe going to start talking.
Have you had other IRS employees reach out to you about coming forward as whistleblowers?
Yes, I have. Other people within the agency.
Is it fair to say that IRS employees are watching your case, and the way you're treated will decide if they're willing to take the risk and come forward?
Absolutely. I think they're wading through the process. They're seeing what happens to Gary and I, the personal and professional effect on our lives. And I think that makes a huge difference.
What was the personal cost of coming forward?
Do it again in a heartbeat. It was the right thing to do, but I've lost personal relationships. The toll of the depression has been pretty debilitating. I'm not a wealthy person. I'm just like anyone out there. I live paycheck to paycheck. I'm surviving as best as I can, and I'm up against a machine that has millions of dollars, that has the ability to fight me and to really wear you down.
Now, we can appreciate that he came forward. We can appreciate that his situation is not desirable. But honestly, I kind of in the Crimea River phase about that shit. I can't help it.
I'm on your team. I really want that guy to be a bro and one that we can connect with. But I've lost relationships. Really, I mean, is the Golden Eagle still crapping in your bank account every 2 weeks?
He's struggling.
Do you still have health insurance? Because I know people that have made similar sacrifices and lost all of that. So what was the sacrifice? You're on national TV talking to Catherine Herridge, who's a prominent journalist.
Yep.
And what
and
has
still
been the
getting paid
disruption?
as a federal employee.
Yes, you can't do that unless you're like Christopher Wray with Brett Baer.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't understand that Crimea River. Now, if that's what it requires, then it's a means to an end. If that needs to be your exhibit, there are better exhibits. I'll say that.
Yeah, feel free to go and sit down with feel free to sit down with Garrett O'Brien's family and talk about having a baby that was 2 weeks old and not having a home and having to live in a trailer. When you're a regular guy who's been making a regular paycheck and doing the right thing and spent your entire life serving your country as an infantryman, as a cop, as an FBI agent, and doing the right thing, even knowing, because the big thing that a lot of people probably miss when they see Garrett O'Brien on our show, which is not, some people have actually said, like, oh, I don't know who Garrett is. It's like, okay, Garrett O'Brien is our friend. He's my friend. And he's a man that knew what was going to happen to him, and he kept doing it anyway because he already saw me get canceled. And that's big bravery, big time.
And so, can we not brush over the fact that
the guy's still getting a paycheck? It's just, to the end of the day, it's like, get out of my face with this stuff.
I live paycheck to paycheck. That's every federal employee. They're all compromised.
Correct.
That's why so many of them just go along, including the big group chat that you and I ejected from, and Garrett still participates in, where people were saying, "Oh, I don't know if they're going to come after me. I don't have any war chest saved up." Are you kidding me?
You've had 2 years to know that they might come after you, and you didn't do anything. They're really lucky that Trump got in, because I think it actually puts a speed bump in. Let's talk about the chaos that's going on right now inside the FBI, because that's what we're hearing. And that's what Carrie Pickett is reporting. It's a good time. You've got some fun stuff about like hard details of what that might look like. So I'm going to give you the screen here.
Well, I found out from some moles, and I think George has talked about it too, and you as well, that there are a mass exodus prepared over at headquarters at the Hoover Building. Lots of people dropping papers. When they get their retirement gigs that require a security clearance, it'll be really interesting to see if those get revoked, and maybe even those who have already retired, like a drunken Jenny. I would be ambitious to see that happen. But for my moles that told me this morning that Christopher Wray, director of the FBI, he has a protective detail because he's an uber important person you would totally recognize if you walked by in a shopping store or not. But he has armed agents full-time with him at all times.
Right.
And the protection detail has prepared a transition team because they know he's on the way out. So the only question is, does he get that final taxpayer-funded flight home, or does he wait on the axe to drop from an incoming administration? But either way, I think that was funny that the guys who are duty-bound to protect his life are like, this guy ain't long for this, and we're going to make preparations for the next one. And the next one should roll in there and say, I don't need you. Go back to putting pedophiles in jail. And if you don't want to do that, pack up your stuff.
Yeah. Why don't we send somebody in like a Louis Freeh? People have been kind of soured on him. I actually don't have any hatred for what he did when he was at the FBI. And the people who worked in the FBI said he was a great director. He's the last director of the FBI that actually was an FBI director. And he just dropped it down. He got rid of the protective detail. He said, I don't need this. I was an FBI agent. I'll just carry a gun, and I need one buddy with me. One, to kind of watch my back, but two, also because I just like an advisor. So you get a special advisor. And that's it. And that's how you ought to roll. Even David Bowditch, who was the last before the current one, he was the last deputy director. He used to roll with two buddies, and like he's a big dude. He's a really big dude. Like if you saw him, you would know. And he would wear a big dark blue suit, and he had the 40 caliber Glock 22 on his hip, which I could see very prominently. He didn't care about printing. He used to wear I saw him wearing a mask, and it was the G-Man with the Thompson machine gun. Didn't hate that, but the fact is, you had two dudes rolling with you, and you're just like you're running the entire FBI, and so maybe that's it. And that was actually under Andy McCabe, and that was when Chris Wray got in there. But man,
it's the hubris. It's the hubris to think that you are so important that you have to have a protective detail because your life could be at risk, or you just want people to punch the button for the elevator for you ahead of time when you get there, so you don't have to have the inconvenience of waiting. You want to be driven
a plane fly to you. That'd be nice.
Airport.
If a plane would fly to pick you up, so you don't have to go to the different airport that's too far away. Let me read some of these quotes that Kerry Pickett has here. One of my buddies. This is how good it is. I didn't share it with the guys that I'm friends with in any of the sort of like private back channels. They're sending me the Washington Times article right now that Pickett wrote.
Same here.
So when people in the Bureau are finding this stuff, so this is how it works, folks. Like when we throw stuff out and then people like report back things that we've said or that we know is going on, this is great. So a couple little gems. We brought it up on the call-in show last night, but it's worth doing it in the main podcast. Number one, the fit test and how they let the standards slack on the fit test, says one FBI source referring to the FBI's agency physical fitness requirements. Everyone's going to have a real problem when they're running for the door. Like they hit that one. That one's classic. The other one was saying, we're really worried about, there's a countdown for Wray because people don't think he's going to stay to get fired after what he did to Comey. And Trump is going to say, quote, yeah, fire his ass. Don't let him take the planes home either, which is true, probably. People that are inside the FBI that are GS-14s are starting to move into 15s jobs, which is the top of the scale, because the 15s are all leaving. They're all looking for ways out. That's a retirement position for most of them. They think that it's going to get smashed to pieces. They think it's going to be a quote unquote bloodbath. We've got George Hill talking about how he's got no less than 50 senior executives right now scrambling to retire as fast as they can. Again, taking their paycheck and their pension and running out there. There was one more thing that I thought was really funny. There was this discussion that maybe Elon Musk might come in and try to look for efficiency at the Hoover building and find out that there are only 5 people that are actually doing any work there. The harder thing would be find people who are doing a job, not people that exist there that need to be cut, which I also agree with. Hoover is essentially irrelevant to people that work in the field, which you well know. Doing workout, like the actual pointy end of what the FBI does when you don't hate it.
Can I tack on an additional, more visceral thing? I mean,
yes.
The peanut the squirrel thing didn't do it for me, very much like Donald Trump at the drive-thru wasn't my jam. But for whatever reason, that sort of anecdotal experience gets people's goat and gets them fired up. Let me give you the new one that I got. There's an agent working in a resident agency who was assigned to work on child pornography cases and didn't want to. So he claimed that it gave him post-traumatic stress syndrome. And the FBI gave him a $35,000 emotional support animal, moved him off of child porn, and he gets to carry his fur baby into work every single day now. That's your premier law enforcement agency under the tutelage and leadership of Christopher Wray.
Yeah, it's insane. I mean, it's completely upside down. We need to be protected from the work that we signed up to do. And I know that you volunteered to do that work. I would have happily done that work. I know it's awful, but I have friends who did it for like 8 years and they were super level headed. There are people that have the capabilities of working it because they believe in, bringing justice for young kids that are being abused. Got kind of like a cautionary tale here, which is pretty weird. This is one of the weirder news stories that's come out of it, particularly because it comes out of Washington State. So I wanted to hit it as just, keep your head on a swivel out there, people. There are some very unhinged people. It turns out a lot of them are women. It turns out a lot of them make no sense whatsoever, and you're not going to expect to get punched. Not only does no one expect the Spanish Inquisition, you never really expect the 82-year-old lady to pop you in the face. So anyway, this is a great story and some body cam footage to go with it. Enjoy.
Covering Snohomish County, where Edmonds police say they arrested an 82-year-old woman Monday for a potential hate crime after allegedly assaulting 2 supporters of Donald Trump.
That woman has not yet been charged. In newly released police body cam video, the 82-year-old suspect explains what happened. KOMO's Michelle Esteban reports.
I approached her and I said, I want to know why you're voting for Trump. That's the only reason I wanted to know. That's the only thing. And I said, because you're brown skin.
Gina Powell says she was on the receiving end of that. She told me she'd never seen the 82-year-old until she was in her face.
Just shocked that just the presence of me, and she made it very clear it was my skin color.
Gina was with her friend Mary Jennings doing this, supporting Donald Trump, waving flags and signs, when she said the woman confronted her over her political beliefs and race.
And then that's when she shoved me, pushed me back, and I said, don't touch me. And then, not even a second, she just popped me right in my chin.
Here's how the woman arrested, who hasn't been charged, described it to police.
Was to push her away, and I put my hand to her chin.
And that's when Mary stepped in.
She punched me, but she connected, and, it slammed my jaw shut.
Both women are physically okay, but it's been an emotional toll.
Yo, what's up with that? What 82-year-old ladies are getting out there and getting froggy enough to start throwing punches?
They're the graybeards of the worst people on earth. Yeah. That is the liberal white woman who will cut off her own child's genitals to impress her friends at brunch.
Look, doesn't have to make sense, doesn't have to be logical. I got our palate cleanse kind of queued up with that in mind. This was the best video that I've seen so far on the day of. I watched it yesterday and I was like, that's it. The internet is over for me now. I'm going to close the phone and shut it down. So this is the last thing that I saw last night as I went to bed. You have to watch to the end of it, because at the end of it, it really makes I think it reflects how I feel, and it probably reflects how you feel. You know what the 4B movement is, Steve?
I became aware of it a little bit recently, but
it came from Korea.
Okay.
It's an ultra-feminist movement of Korean women who said we are going to basically go on a sex strike, and we are not going to marry men, and we are not going to date men, and we are not going to entertain the company of men because misogyny, I guess. Like, this is essentially what The View says. So that's the claim. That's what the 4B is that they keep talking about. And this man is reacting to the 4B movement in the way that only a rational, sane, human adult male could.
I'm hearing talk of this 4B movement because Trump won the presidency, right? My thing is this. Oh no, shiver me timbers. What's so crazy? We've gone so far left that we've come back around right. Isn't that crazy? Women are saying, you know what? We're not going to have sex with any of you anymore until you treat us with respect. Let me get this straight. You had to have a woman lose the presidency for you to stop sleeping with men unless they show you respect? Is that not hilarious to you? We're not going to have sex with any men until y'all start treating us like human beings. Y'all was sleeping with men that wasn't treating you like human beings. We're not having any children until marriage. Y'all were having children before. Like, what are you talking about? What are you talking about? Who are you telling? We've been asking y'all to stop being hoes for years. And it takes Kamala Harris to lose the presidency for y'all to say, you know what? We're closing our legs until we get some respect. All right, if that'll do it.
God.
That was a
host for years.
much cooler version of Scott Jennings being, look, I really know that you're emotional right now, but what you're telling me is exactly what I've been saying.
He was Billy Madison That was Billy Madison. He's like, you eat pieces of shit for breakfast? That was exactly what that vibe is. It's so funny. I'm watching these women shave their heads and stuff, and they've got like sex dolls in the background, and you're like, what the? And this guy, he's like, what are you talking about? He's just getting in the face of it. That's exactly how I felt last night, so I just shut it down. I was like, that's it.
I'm ready to go back to my covered wagon right now. That's where we're at.
Yeah, it's perfect. Like, it's perfect sanity. We've wrapped around. It's always going to go that way, though. Somebody was like, didn't the French women like shave their heads like when they were in the German occupation of France, so that they would be used as concubines or whatever it was? And it's like also,
when they were collaborators, it was a punishment because we had shame back then.
Right. Well, the second piece of it is that so did Natalie Portman in V for Vendetta, which was also
and
really
Britney
fun.
Spears when she had a mental break.
Yeah. Also, Demi Moore did that when she wanted to become a Navy SEAL. Called
She
G.I.
did.
Jane.
That's completely factual. It's based in history.
That was too much for me. It's just my favorite. I love it so much. Steve, we're gonna wrap this sucker up. It's been really interesting. It's been awesome for the last couple of months. The last probably almost 2 years now that we've been doing this thing. We're gonna be moving into 2.0. I'll play a promo for that in just a second for folks. But let people know they heard it on your show the other day. Tell them what's going on with American Radicals. I'm gonna give you the screen.
All right, American Radicals. Well, I first would encourage you all to join us tomorrow for our final Saturday episode at noontime on Rumble, rumble.com/amradpod. But then we are going to be going to 2.0 ourselves. We're going to take Monday, Wednesday, Friday, 0930. So the time slot that you were typically coming to this audience, we're going to be there Monday, Wednesday, Friday, doing our thing. So folks can expect to have that content there. And we're building out the Suspendables, i.e. Seraphin Media Network, and excited to do that. Hopefully we will grow the audience and reach more people with Garrett's perspective and mine, and just really encourage people to do the right thing at the right time, the right way, for the right reasons, which is the prime directive of the Suspendables.
That is it. Bud, thanks for being on this morning. Folks, thanks for joining us this morning. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to play our promo, and then I'm probably going to play that guy's video one more time about 4B, because it just makes me happy, and I want to start the day with a little bit more happiness than maybe I would have otherwise had. But that's all for today, folks. God bless all of you. Make sure you're following our friends over where our new handle is over on Twitter. So if you're watching us on Twitter right now, you can follow us while you're doing this. It's Kyle Seraphin Pod, P-O-D. Kyle Seraphin Pod, like podcast. You can follow. It's at Kyle Seraphin Pod. You'll find the promo there as well. But let's go ahead and let you know where we're going. And then I'm going to sign off for the day. I got a bunch of things that are going to get done. We got a lot of work over the weekend to get ready for Monday and our new relaunch. God bless all of you. God bless this country. Watch out for your neighbors if they're vulnerable, if they're having that mental health moment. Let them know. It's going to be okay. You're in the technique right now, folks. It's time to exercise it. Just stay in the pocket, bob and weave, make it so. All right, here's our launch. This is where we're going, folks.
Kyle Seraphin.
Kyle Seraphin.
Kyle Seraphin.
Recently suspended FBI agent Kyle Seraphin. Former FBI whistleblower.
Indefinitely suspended for telling the truth.
They say that God draws straight with crooked lines. My life is great evidence of that. I worked in many fields, from running restaurants to working in corporate finance to working as a sales guy and eventually joining the military. That led me to the FBI, where I found myself unceremoniously kicked to the curb because I had principles. That led me to becoming a podcast host, and I take all of that varied experience and try to peel back with a scalpel of truth, get rid of the narrative, get rid of the propaganda, and find out what is actually happening in the world. The Kyle Seraphin Show is going to be an exploration. We're all on the journey together, finding that truth with a capital T. It's only with a team that we were going to be able to take this podcast to the next level, and we've done just that. This is the next iteration of the Kyle Seraphin Show. Call it version 2.0. For those of you who are new, and for those of you who are coming back, welcome aboard.
I'm hearing talk of this 4B movement because Trump won the presidency, right? My thing is this. Oh no, shiver me timbers. What's so crazy? We've gone so far left that we've come back around right. Isn't that crazy? Women are saying, you know what? We're not going to have sex with any of you anymore until you treat us with respect. Let me get this straight. You had to have a woman lose the presidency for you to stop sleeping with men unless they show you respect? Is that not hilarious to you? We're not going to have sex with any men until y'all start treating us like human beings. Y'all Y'all was sleeping with men that wasn't treating you like human beings. We're not having any children until marriage. Y'all were having children before. Like, what are you talking about? What are you talking about? Who are you telling? We've been asking y'all to stop being hoes for years. We've been asking y'all to stop being hoes for years. And it takes Kamala Harris to lose the presidency for y'all to say, you know what? We're closing our legs until we get some respect. All right, if that'll do it.
It's too good.